Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today is Tuesday, March 5th, 2024, and this is the regular governing board meeting for the Litchfield Elementary School District Governing Board. I hereby call this meeting to order. Our first thing on the agenda is going to be, sorry, they have it a little opposite today. We're going to start with last week, we lost a student at Litchfield Elementary School, and so we just want to ask that our community please keep their school family as well as their home family in your hearts and prayers, and just keep that in mind as you're thinking about that, because it's a very difficult time that their families have been going through, both at school and at home. So we just want to keep them in our thoughts. And then with that, we're going to start with a moment of silent reflection. So if you can just give us a moment. Okay, next we are going to move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. So if everyone can please stand and join us. And next, we are going to move on to recognitions and celebrations. This is going to be led by Executive Director Nuanez.
Madam President, governing board members, Superintendent Davidson, fellow cabinet members, and esteemed guests, both present and online. Excellence, word of origin, from the Latin word, it's excellentia, meaning to surpass. Now, let me use that in a sentence. These outstanding students that we are here to celebrate tonight have demonstrated excellence, not only in their spelling bee competition, but in their daily classroom achievements. So tonight we gather not just as educators, leaders, and community members, but as proud witnesses to the brilliance and determination of our young scholars. It is an honor to stand before you to celebrate the remarkable achievements of our LASD 7-9 Spelling Bee champions. In the captivating realm of spelling, where every letter counts and every word sparkles like a jewel in a crown, they have demonstrated an unparalleled excellence. They've spelled their way through countless words, overcoming challenges with grace and intelligence, and inspiring us all with their unwavering dedication. Now, let me introduce you to our district champions. First up is Samara Fields, an eighth grader from Samara is an eighth grader from Wigwam Creek Middle School. With her impeccable spelling prowess, Samara has shown us that age is no barrier to greatness. She embodies the spirit of power and determination. Next up, we have Lauren Howard. Lauren is a sixth grader from Western Sky Middle School. Lauren's tenacity and passion for language have propelled her to success in the spelling bee world. Her achievements remind us that brilliance knows no bounds and that with hard work, success can be achieved. Now let's turn our attention to Therese Pixler. Another eighth grader from Western Sky Middle School. Teresa's performance was radiant, showcasing the beauty of language and the artistry of expression. She is a shining example of the heights that can be reached when talent meets dedication. And last but certainly not least, we celebrate Hannah Willem. We celebrate Hannah Willem, 8th grader from Belen Soto Elementary School. Hannah's command over words is nothing short of extraordinary, and her journey is a testament to the strong spirit and unwavering resolve. As we celebrate these remarkable students, let us also acknowledge the dedicated teachers, supportive family members, and the nurturing school community that have helped shape their paths to success. May we always nurture the spark of curiosity, ignite the flame of learning, and empower every student to reach for the stars. Our district spelling bee champs are shining examples of what can be achieved when we believe in the limitless potential of every child. We celebrate you all tonight. Okay, who wants to take on supercalifragilisticexpialidocious? Okay, not really. Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and stand right here. We'll take a quick photo with Governing Board President and Superintendent Davidson. Yeah. Parents, parents would like to join as well. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Awesome job. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Sir.
I just wanted to point out one thing about one of those students actually that I was made aware of at the spelling bee. Therese from Western Sky. This was actually her 3rd year winning the spelling bee. So let's give her another round of applause. Okay, with that, we are going to move on to our next item on the agenda, which is public requests to address the governing board. We have one speaker. I'm going to read this little disclaimer and then we'll have them come up. Pursuant to Arizona Revised Statutes 38-431.01H, this agenda item provides an open call to the public, allowing individuals to address the governing board on any issue within the jurisdiction of the board. Items not listed on the agenda may be brought to the governing board's attention under this section of the agenda. Due to the Arizona open meeting law, the governing board cannot discuss or take any action on items not listed on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, response to public comment about matters not appearing on the agenda will be limited to individual board members who may ask staff to study the matter, respond to any criticism, or ask that the matter be put on a future agenda for further consideration and decision at a later date. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes, and no more than 30 minutes will be devoted to the public comment portion of the agenda. When you approach the podium, please state your name for the record. Our speaker tonight is Allison England.
Hi, my name is Allison England. First of all, I just want to thank you for serving in our community board. I appreciate it. Again, Allison England. My daughter attends VMS, Verado Middle School, 6th grade, and she is biracial. And I am a professor in school social work at ASU. The concern that I'm bringing to you today is I want to both, first of all, commend and offer feedback about Principal Peduano's addressing insensitive language being used among 6th graders at Verado Middle School recently. The utilization of school time to be directed to skill teaching regarding race and discrimination, discriminatory language, I appreciate. My issue is not with the initiation of the response, which was quite appropriate, but of the actual intervention and the missed opportunity to have meaningful engagement with the students on this very important life issue. Suite 360 adopted by LASD, while it is well-meaning, this one particular module totally misses the mark. Context is that the homeroom teachers led students through the module. When viewing the module, here are my concerns. The title of it is "What's the Big Deal? The Impact of Racial and Discriminatory Behavior." It's a combination of videos, text, Q&A prompts. Both the video clips focused only on Black population, the BIPOC population. As you know, in Verado, we have a multicultural community. My second concern is that the target audience was for adults. The context was really almost like an HR type of training. In passing, it uses terminology like systemic discrimination, vicarious trauma, economic impact of dehumanization. It then continues to connect mental health and racism, citing hypertension and cardiovascular problems. In addition, the video was meant to be an intervention for someone who had actually made the racist statements. Example was, what is the impact on others of the racial discriminatory behavior you used? What will you use to make things, or what will you do to make things better? What steps will you take? However, all students at VMS in 6th grade were led through the module, leaving students who had not engaged in the racist comments and even the victims being a part of it and quite frankly, being confused. Suite 360 did offer another video called Tolerance and Discrimination that seemed much better suited. It had a multicultural focus. It hit on key issues and it was age appropriate. Why it was not used, I do not know. My ask is that we be thoughtful about interventions. Staff and faculty must take the time to get to know the tools that they are provided. And it's critical that those who are in charge, administrators, give them the time and focus and are allowed to use these interventions that are going to create meaningful change, not just check a box.
Thank you. Next, we are going to move on to the adoption of the agenda and consideration of consent agenda. I will go through and see if anyone has any items that they wish to pull from consent. Ms. Clymer?
I do not, thank you.
Ms. Moran?
I would like to remove item 6.7, certified personnel employment position change with new contract with salary exception.
Mr. Owens?
No, thanks.
I don't have anything either, so if someone would like to make a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda minus item 6.7.
I will second.
Okay. Just for clarification, it was asked that I restate who made the motion and the second, just so that you all know. So a motion was made by Ms. Clymer, seconded by Ms. Moran. I'll call for the vote. Ms. Clymer?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
I'm a yay. Motion passes. We are going to then move on to the item that was pulled, 6.7, and I will let Ms. Moran start that discussion.
As always, when there's something big on the consent agenda, I like to pull it off so we can have a conversation. So on this particular item, there are three big personnel issues. So I would like to get some feedback from the administration on, first of all, the process that we went through to determine these recommendations, and then talk about the folks themselves.
Thank you, Ms. Moran and President Zion. We appreciate you giving us the opportunity to speak to this agenda item this evening. Certainly, for those in the audience and for those that are uncertain, we're speaking about the school principal this evening. Those are the items on hand, and what an exciting process we had, Ms. Moran, and for those that are listening, just an opportunity for our applicants to shine throughout a variety of pieces of the process, from their initial application, a screening process, a first interview, as well as a second. And I'll let Mr. Cooley speak to the overall process. Ms. Moran, I just wanted to highlight, as we move into hopefully having the board vote and recognize those individuals who are here tonight. The important piece that I want to say is that not only did these individuals go through that entire process, they definitely have also earned the opportunity, but I would add to that, they won it at the table. They certainly came out as our strongest two candidates for our open position. So thank you again for giving us the opportunity. I'll turn it over to Matt Cooley, and then I'll take it from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Davidson. It was a pretty robust process, actually. We had about 20 candidates apply for the positions. And so we pulled together those applicants. We vetted them against a rubric. We had 3 staff members independently grade them up against that rubric. Very close-knit grading. Out of those candidates, we had 12 that made it through that first vetting process. And then out of those 12, we provided them with 2 questions as an inbox activity. And then after that, they were tasked to present a video introducing themselves to their new community. After that, we then graded them against another rubric. And then the top 8 candidates made it through. Of those 8 candidates, we had 5 internal and 3 external. We had a pretty large stakeholder group representing Litchfield Elementary School District, and then Verado Elementary, and then we had district staff as well. And so we brought all those candidates in. There was a total of 14 stakeholder members there and interviewed all day long. It was a fun day of interviews, great candidates, all of them. It was clear at the end of the day who the top candidates were. So we brought 3 top candidates back in the next day to speak with cabinet. And then we were able to make our decision from there. We had to make them wait a little bit longer than they wanted to over the weekend, but it was fun surprising them on Monday morning. So it was a good process.
Ms. Moran, before I go into introduction of our, again, hopefully board approved future principals, any questions the board may have regarding this item?
I have one question. So did all of the applicants, since they're both elementary positions that we had open, was everyone applying for either position, or kind of how did that work?
So we did post the jobs independently, each campus, and all of the applicants were in both pools. So when we pulled together to do interviews, we were able to do one interview for both positions. And then we also asked the stakeholder group to kind of identify who they would prefer for their campus. And so it was very clear at the end of the day, this campus preferred these candidates, this campus preferred these candidates, just due to the fit. So that's kind of how we do it.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Ms. Moran, and also another important piece is we did ask our staff members from those respective schools to give us insight on what they would like to see in their next principal. We use that data to build some specific interview questions that might relate to those items that they had asked us to look at.
Ms. Clymer, did you have any questions?
No, I don't. I will hold my congratulations till after the vote.
Mr. Owens, did you have any questions?
No, thanks.
I don't have any questions, just that I have had the opportunity to actually work with both of the new, hopefully incoming principals, and think they're both fantastic leadership for our district. So if there are no other questions or comments, then I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the certified personnel employment position change with new salary, excuse me, with new contract salary exception as presented.
I will second.
Having a motion from Ms. Clymer and a second from Ms. Moran, I will call for the vote. Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Ms. Moran,
Yay.
Mr. Owens.
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. Congratulations to both of you.
Madam President, may I take a moment just to introduce the team members?
Please do.
All right, well, we'll start. Thank you for everybody for being here. Whether you're a staff member, a family member, a pure supporter of these two fine ladies and truly winners of the principal positions. We're going to start right in front of me here, Miss Sarah Fantasia. Sarah is currently an instructional coach at Rancho Santa Fe, is here with her family, as well as some of her Rancho family. So we want to just say thank you and congratulations. Job well done. In case you were wondering, Sarah is also a former Litchfield student. So she has very deep roots in the community, and we're excited to have her lead up at Verado. Sarah Fantasia. All right, and here's what we know. The principalship cannot be done independently of staff, students, community members, family. And what I see behind Sarah is the Litchfield family back there, and here to support Miss Denise Lundberg. Denise is currently an instructional coach as well. And Denise has been with Litchfield Elementary School District for many a year, and we're just so excited to have her join this leadership team. And we thank you for your partnership with Miss Hopper and just the work that's been done and that we know will continue to be done. So welcome and thank you.
With that, I think we're going to just take a 2-minute break. So if anybody wants to take pictures for their special people, they can get that done. And then we'll get back to the business. Okay, now that we have a very full house again, just kidding, we do not. Thank you for everybody that's watching online. We are going to get back to our agenda. We're going to move on to our action items, which is going to be consideration of approval of the projected budget for fiscal year 24-25. This is going to be presented by CFO Vaughn.
Madam President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Davidson, colleagues and community, thank you for joining us tonight to consider approval for the district's budget for the 2024-2025 school year. This presentation is a result of all the budget discussions and feedback we've received throughout this process. This administrative recommendation is very similar to the previous board presentation we saw last week. It includes at least a 2% raise for all employee groups, additional raises for specific employees identified through the compensation study, additional pay and resources towards addressing contracted special education staffing, as well as some additional positions to address system-wide needs. The modifications were limited to removing the Tier 2 grounds and facilities positions and a slight update to the raise estimates based on a final review of those figures. Our team is proud of the work we've engaged in during this process and believe the administrative recommendation reflects our desire to listen to the needs, supported by data through the compensation study, collaborative work with our leadership, and shows responsive stewardship through use of our carryover to help balance out the budget using a multi-year approach. By approving the budget tonight, this allows the district to be timely in our competitive market and will allow employees to know what their raise will be prior to contracts being due back. At this time, we're available to answer any questions you might have, and we have the presentation available so we can go through slides to answer specific questions. Thank you.
Ms. Clymer, did you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Ms. Moran, did you have any questions?
I do not have any questions because we reviewed this in great detail last week and portions of this prior to that as well. So no questions. Great work. Thank you.
Mr. Owens, any questions?
I don't have any questions. Can I make a comment real quick? If you're a teacher or an employee of the district and you don't understand how any of this works or what your compensation is going to be, I recommend that you reach out to Executive Director Coley or CFO Vaughn or somebody to compare what you make versus maybe what you might have offered from another district. I've gotten some feedback recently, and so I just want to point that out that I don't know, these are a lot of numbers. I don't know what all these numbers mean without knowing your financial situation. So I just encourage anybody who feels like they're not sure to reach out, and they'll be able to point that, like explain it and break it down. I know you're going to get your contracts, but I just wanted to emphasize that, because if you're unsure, then get the answer before you make a decision without all the information, if that makes sense.
I don't have any questions. I echo what Mr. Owen said regarding coming to the people that know and can help you understand if you don't know. This has been a long process. We've spent a lot of time talking about it. So I'm happy that we've gotten to hear with all the work that's been done by our administration and the board and everybody that's worked together to get us to where we are right now. If there's no other questions or comments, though, if somebody would like to make a motion.
I move to approve the projected budget for fiscal year 24-25 as presented.
A second.
Having a motion from Ms. Moran and a second from Mr. Owens, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Clymer? Yay. Ms. Moran?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. Everybody excited to have that out of the way now? Right? Okay, we are going to move on now to the reason that we're in this different setup today is that we're going to have discussions. And today it's going to be on the strategic plan, which is going to be led by Dr. Davidson. But we are sitting in this different setup tonight so that we can really dig into it as a team and work collaboratively. So in case anybody was wondering, but I will turn it over to Dr. Davidson.
All right. Thank you, Board President Zeidman, members of the board and team. Just an awesome experience in front of us tonight. So I appreciate your flexibility in the seating because we do have a guest partner today, Mr. David LaRose, who's going to guide us in conversation. And I just wanted to start off by sharing a few things that will help serve as a frame for the work we're going to do tonight. Most recently, I was given a book. It's entitled School Management. The interesting piece about this book, and you might say, school management, that's a strange title. It is, because it was written in 1894. All right. And this is just a book around all sorts of things considering tied to school management. The first page of chapter 1 is called School Government. And I wanted just to read just a couple of highlights from this page that will help frame tonight. It starts by saying that a knowledge of the end to be reached serves as a guide in practice. Continues on, the more clearly the end to be obtained is seen, the greater the inspiring interest and the more skillful the effort. It further adds, and I'm going to ask you to substitute the word teaching for leading. It could be a variety of things, but it says all aimless teaching is poor teaching, whatever may be the teacher's zeal. Moreover, it is not only essential that the teacher have a clear knowledge of the end to be reached, but this end must be a true one. A wrong end is a radical and fatal error in education. It subverts effort and wastes time, energy, and opportunity. I felt like that was just an important message for us and for the team this morning as we engage in something called a strategic plan. Something that in my mind is meant to be a plan to get to where we want to get to. But we probably need to spend a little bit of time really thinking about where do we want to go? Where is our aim? We don't want to be aimless in that effort. So I wanted to start with that. Certainly I had a chance to introduce Mr. David LaRose. He's joined us at the table today, but I also wanted to share just a few ahas or principles from this morning's work with all of our leadership team as a whole. The entire district went through some activities in regards to some strategic planning. First and foremost, I just would like to say that as we go through this experience today, that one of the things that rang true is that the fundamental reason for our work, or what we may hear tonight is called the moral imperative, that's what's going to drive us forward, the why behind our efforts. And I want you to think about as well, what do we do here in Litchfield Elementary School this year? Maybe perhaps what do you want us to do here? And can we ultimately defend that with evidence? What is it that's going to be raised up that says, yes, we are meeting those goals, those objectives set forth throughout this activity? Mr. LaRose will speak to the practicality of this effort, that our hope and desire as a team, and as you hear from me, is that a strategic plan is meant to be a guide. It's meant to be alive and practical, not just a document or a poster that hangs on a wall. We want our work to be compelling. So Mr. LaRose will engage us tonight in really figuring out what's going to move us. If we're expected to do some hard work, what's the rationale and what moves us to that work? And lastly, I would just ask us to consider, is it okay to go slow to go fast? Think about how we engage a variety of key holders, those key individuals that join us as we build it, as it serves as a foundation for our work, and ultimately aligns all of our efforts across our departments, across our schools, and in the hands of our children. So just a few things to guide us today. And with that said, unless the board wants to tell me something, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. LaRose to start it off. So thank you.
Good evening. Dr. Davidson, thank you for taking all my material. So that summary base, any questions? And then we can wrap this up. I'm trying to be as efficient as Michael just was. You just adopted a board, right? I want to applaud you for your efficiency and your work there. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. I do want to offer some affirmations just because I have had the good opportunity to work with your teams in a variety of different scenarios. I've worked with Dr. Doozy and Jennifer Benjamin, and working with the district guiding coalition. So it's building leaders and district leaders are around this thing called collaboration. And what is a professional learning community and what makes up that work? So working with that team and bringing clarity around something that almost universally all districts are doing, right? Because if something gets so popular and they have a conference about it and they turn it into an acronym, then all of us think we need to do it, right? All right, so sarcasm is going to work with you guys too, right? So PLCs, RTI, MTSS, right? So, but beyond the acronym, what does that really mean? So, really investing time in bringing some clarity to what's the fundamental purpose of this work and what are the characteristics and qualities of highly effective collaborative teams. So, being a part of that was certainly a pleasure. Working with the principals in how they lead a collaborative environment, which is completely different than your traditional management approach. How are you building that culture? And then I want to applaud you for not only saying that that's something that you wanted to invest in, but then you backed it up by giving them time. I work with districts that are all about the PLC, and we send people to conferences, and then we do a book study, and then we're allowed to meet 7 minutes a month. You built in an early release to allow teams to actually engage in the work because it takes time to do the work. So I want to applaud you for that work as well. And then, and to what end, right? The work that's been done as a district to actually define what is the Litchfield learner. Because ultimately the budget that you just adopted should be serving and supporting that. Your investments should be measured and monitored not by did we buy what we said we were going to buy and did we spend it on what we said we were going to spend it on, is did it make the difference we wanted that investment to make? What's the return on the investment? So the work that's being done, I think, is powerful, and I do think it's strategic. I think it's systemic, and it's not about a program adoption, a new program, a new shiny thing. These are core elements of all the systems that I've had the good pleasure to be a part of where there's been growth and improvement. So compliments. And also what it empowers you guys to do as a team is to not use the words that some people are very uncomfortable with: new, change, different. Some people aren't too excited about those words. Your words are deeper, stronger, better, right? I spend time across the country working with different districts, 2 days a month in inner city Los Angeles. The conversation there around corrective action is way different than how do we get better at some of the good things that we're already doing. So I just want to commend you for that. My experience, I have 32 plus years in public education, a teacher, coach, a dean, an assistant principal, a principal, an assistant superintendent in 2 districts. What I like to say is I'm a recovering superintendent. So I have the authority to make fun of all the things that we used to do, right? But I can understand the context and the magnitude of things like strategic plans that everybody's doing, and every 4 years we should be doing it, but shifting our mindset about how we approach it to something that's actually meaningful, and it's about a purpose, not just a product or a poster. And you've had a great tool, an instrument that you've had since 19, right? That's a great vehicle to build upon. So I'm looking forward to being here. And so before I kind of jump in and walk you through what we did today and kind of where we're at in the process, because we certainly want to engage you in a process. So when it comes time to adopt the strategic plan, we'll have Michael present it like he just did, and you will just adopt it with no questions asked, right? That's kind of what we're looking for. But you have some people around the table that were a part of the conversation today. So I'll invite any of them to share any takeaways, key moments, key phrases that Dr. Davidson hasn't already shared with everybody, right? So any takeaways from the team at the table? Nothing about stakeholders. And no pressure if you're going to say something, but these are 2 people that said really nice things about me. So I just want you to make sure that you're in alignment with the script.
As the new guy who came into the district, getting to be a part of this process is really exciting, as we know it drives the work, as Dr. Davidson said. And to see the process today compared to what it may have been in other places for me was really impressive. The buy-in real quickly, and then just the candid conversations around what it is really about. And so overall, the key stakeholders play a large role in developing this, and the work that we get to do in the future will be really awesome for our community and our students.
I think one of the key takeaways for me today, and it's one that we've talked about in board meetings too, is just as important as identifying what we will do is identifying what we won't do to protect our resources and our capacity and our ability to really push into those things that are important enough for us to do. So the things that we're doing well. That was a really large takeaway for me today.
And to know what we will say no to, we have to know what we say yes to. And to know our yes, we have to start with our why. So why are we here? What is our purpose?
Okay, so just a little bit of my own learning and my own experience that comes to the forefront when we're embedded in the work is that, and I have the good fortune now to be a coach and a trainer and a presenter across the country, working in a variety of different environments. And so what I like to bring to the table is not just content, because you can go and buy that anywhere. Right. It's how do you bring it in and you consider the context? Where are you doing it? Who are you doing it with? What do they need? What do they have? What do they not have? If we don't do it within the context, then it won't be meaningful, and it will be, to Dr. Davidson's point, just another poster. So you need to balance what you're doing, not just about what's the product, right? It's really what's the purpose and what's the process, because otherwise you believe that the end game is the product. Right. We don't need another visual. You have plenty of visuals, a nice, cool visual like lots of districts have. Did we create something that when we have to make difficult decisions, and you just did, you went through a process where federal dollars have gone away and you had to make some difficult decisions, right? So if we haven't established who we are and what we stand for and what we won't stand for, then what do you do to base your decisions, right? So understanding that it's a balance, right? It's the technical work, which is really the science of it, but then it's the culture, it's relationships, it's identity, it's beliefs and values, and really identifying those things that are going to fuel the work. Otherwise, again, we'll be missing the part that makes this compliant document compelling. Right. So how do we make sure that we engage people, that they have their hand in it and they build it and they create it and they own it, as opposed to they feel like it's a directive that we need to implement, and quarterly we need to report information to you on our adherence to the instrument. So making sure that that's part of the conversation all along. And to the point that Dr. Davidson made, is my encouragement is don't be in a rush to get it done. Right. One of the things that we're doing with all of your teams around identifying your most essential standards is that's not, let's identify the content that we must cover throughout the year. It's let's identify the skills that kids must be proficient in. Proficiency is not pacing. This isn't pacing, right? What's the pacing to the product? And then what are we going to do by when? That's just a list of things to do, right? But what are the things that we actually need to be proficient at? So you establish the timeline, but I do encourage you to not be in a hurry because we set some arbitrary timeline to say we want by this date, we want it to look like this, and not have it be something that when we talk to people about it, we have an enthusiastic, unapologetic identification, personal identification with what it is that we created. Okay. I'll take a breath. I'm highly caffeinated, and every time you see me, I always will be. So I'll take a pause. Do you have any questions for anybody else, for me, for experience? Otherwise, I can jump into kind of what we talked about today. You're good, right? I'm the only thing between you and
The weirdest
dinner.
meeting ever. Like
Yeah.
no one's asking me any questions, commenting. Like
Yeah.
you're like highly caffeinated over there and we're like half asleep or something. I don't know. We don't normally behave this way. So I'm just like really
Yeah.
weirded out by all this.
Yeah. Well, you have several people like, well, now you feel our pain. We're like, yeah, we were inspired and then tired. I mean, like within 3 seconds, right? So part of the request for proposal process that you guys submitted around strategic plan, what I submitted was, let's start with clarity, right? So, and I'm a man of a million mantras, but one is clarity, capacity, commitment. And everything starts with clarity. Why are we doing what we're doing, right? And what is it that we're intending it to do? If we don't define that, then we just jump into, products and implementation, and systems are often caught up in that work too. So clarity precedes capacity, right? So when we know what we're doing and why we're doing it, then we want to build a capacity to do it, right? So that's the growth component of it. Third C is commitment, right? And so if we're not clear on what we're doing and why we're doing it, and I don't know how to do it, I don't know how we can get people to commit to do it, right? So starting with clarity about what's the purpose of this work, and then establishing what is the process of this work. And then you see the themes with P's. you'll see several slides where you're like, you don't have much of a life, right? Because it's all about just kind of the lingo, but it's how do we have clarity of the purpose? Do we have clarity of the process? And do we have clarity and commitment around what are the products and the proof that we want this to generate? So building with that, that's really where we're starting, because I think sometimes we assume if we've done this before, we know exactly what we're doing, and let's recreate the exact same thing. And then to Dr. Davidson's point, we have an opportunity to not necessarily do it that way. I do think that one thing that we would appreciate, and I know the team would, is will be some items where we have some conversations about how do we engage the community? What are the options? Do you do a series of open houses that precede board meetings? Do you do a Saturday event? Because that's what the neighboring district did, and everybody should get t-shirts. And I mean, let's talk about stakeholder events and what's the next steps along the way. So it's meaningful and it's yours, not anybody else's, but it's yours. But we want you to have your hands in that. And to be able to help facilitate even conversations in a similar way that were facilitated today. Anything that you'd like to add? Start? You like? No? Would you just hold on to that Starbucks right there? I just don't think it's all right. So the message today was we'll just pass it around, right? So so with the team that was in the room is this admin team, right? So this is a conduit to people and places and programs, and we want them to be informed on what we're doing, not hand out the plan. So we want to inform them of what we're doing and why we're doing it, also, as well as solicit feedback on what was the journey with the last product, and what worked and what were some of the outcomes and what should we continue and what do we need to add and amend. The next is how do we engage people in conversations around it, because ultimately what we want that team to do, and they left the meeting today enlisted to go and engage their various teams. They're going to engage their whole staff. They're going to engage their guiding coalition. They'll identify student groups and parent groups to make sure that they participate in a similar conversation about who are we, who do we serve, what do we stand for, and what won't we stand? Because ultimately that should be what guides the strategic plan, right? So one of the conversations centered around this, and I would ask just for your opportunity to have some feedback, and I'd be interested to hear this as well, is that if the mindset is that leadership is influence, then let's look at an instrument that was developed by leadership and what was the influence of the prior strategic plan, because you guys were a part of that, I believe, in its development. And then you can look at it from where you were to where you are to discuss how do we develop the plan and what did the plan produce? What was your influence on the plan? How did the plan influence you as elected officials? And what did you learn through that process that we can build on moving forward?
Are we answering that question or?
Yeah, I'm going to do some wait time. I won't even make eye contact with you. Yeah. So
I didn't know if that was like,
yes,
do you want us to tell you right now?
Yeah, a little
okay,
bit.
I didn't
Yeah,
know if
just
we're like going to have another discussion.
No, not at all. I think just kind of that plan, and we have it up here visually from in the right corner is kind of the visual, but just kind of understanding what your process was in terms of its development and how that's been used and what you'd like to see continue and what you think might be able to even be more influential the next time around.
Yeah, I'll start. You guys just jump in. In 2018, I believe it was, I mean, the plan started in 2019, but I think 2018, the board went to a national school board conference and sort of fell in love with the idea of creating a strategic plan, which was very different than anything we'd had here. So we sort of came back and said, we know we need help with this. We don't exactly know what we want it to say or how we want it to live, but we kind of know the purpose and all that stuff. So we started on this journey. And then I think at the end of the day, what you see there was absolutely a product of the board's feedback, the admin and the cabinet's feedback, and the community's feedback, right? I mean, top to bottom, I do truly feel like at the time we engaged everyone at the level that we could and for the appropriate time and gave them opportunities for feedback. So I do think that was a successful piece of that plan and something we should do moving forward. We do have a lot of engaged community members, staff members, obviously board members and cabinet that want to be a part of that do understand various pieces of who we are and why we do things a certain way. So I think it's important, like we did last time, to involve as many people as possible, without also having too many cooks in the kitchen. So we'll leave that to you to figure out how that works. I think some of the successes of this plan to me were it got us to start asking the questions. What do we believe? What can we all agree on? What are our values? What are we trying to achieve here? Not that we didn't know that before, but we didn't have a collective response on a piece of paper that said, yes, this is it, right? I think it helped us generally as a board. We would go back and say, okay, these are the pillars. These are some of our goals, even though the goals change from year to year somewhat. When we were making certain decisions, we were able to look back and say, okay, does this fit? Where does this fit on here? And if it's not even on the page, why are we talking about it, right? If it is on the page, where does it fit? And is this imperative that this be done? Is this down the priority list? It gave us a roadmap. So I think it was successful in that. One thing I will say from my perspective that wasn't as successful as I think we intended it to be is that, to Carter's point earlier about it sort of being this living, breathing document and not just something that sits on a shelf somewhere. Not that I think this was necessarily, but it became a little more rigid than I think it was ultimately designed to be. We chose to incorporate it not just at an overarching district level, but in our superintendent in terms of evaluation. And every school had a scorecard that looked the same. And then teachers were sort of put on this chart, like everything kind of trickled down. And so it's really hard to change one thing when it changes everything. And so by having something that was very traditional in that way, we loved the fact that it all sort of piled on top of each other. And at the end, you had this amazing scaffold that's like, it worked. But then when one thing didn't fit, everything didn't fit. And so it wasn't as changeable or revisable as it needed to be because unbeknownst to us, we had a pandemic in the middle of that 5 years and that wasn't on the sheet. So
I don't think it fits in there anywhere, right?
I mean, and every district was fighting that same battle. It wasn't just us that was like, oh my gosh, what box does that fall under? And so I think I don't assume that will happen again in the next 5 years, but I think I felt like, okay, wow, not that we could have ever planned for a global pandemic, but we're in public education and we know that we have bombs dropped on us all the time. Where does that fit in here? Where is the flexibility to say, oh, wow, we didn't expect this. Now what? And so I'd like to see more of that this year, if that's possible. And I don't know if that's what you meant by sort of an untraditional look at strategic plans. And, I'm not necessarily here for the graphic or the collateral piece or the, shiny website. Like, it doesn't matter to me how we display it to people necessarily, although, communication is extremely important. I think having that community collaboration and the understanding that this is the direction that we are moving in, this is not every stepping stone that's going to get us there, right? It can be strategic and not tactical. And I think we have to understand the difference of that and also help our community and other people understand that everything we do and every decision we make isn't going to be on this piece of paper. This really should just be the overarching guidance that says, hey, this is what we believe, what we don't believe. This is what's important to us, whether we call them pillars or whatever. Let's make decisions based on what's here. But let's also realize that there are things that we don't even know we are going to be approached with, and we have to be able to use this to help us make those decisions, even when we don't know that that freight train is coming towards us.
Right.
So.
Right. That's great. Thank you. Anyone else add to that?
Yeah, I'll add some input. So I was also on the board when this came about. I joined the board in 2018, and Danielle gave a great description of kind of the process. Prior to this, there was no strategic plan. So this to us was pretty remarkable that now we did have a place to go back, whether we were having discussions with the superintendent or discussions with other board members in a board meeting about why we were making the decisions. We would say, okay, does this support student success? Does this support service? Where does it fit into that? I will agree that I think we were more rigid about it than we should have been in hindsight. And also now when I read it, I can see pretty much exactly which members of leadership had input into each category. You can just see their personality and some of the wording and things like that.
Right.
So I think we need something that is going to stand the test of time, regardless of who our leaders are. And to your point, gets back to what is it that we want to accomplish in the end. Some of the goals that we had were not easily measurable. So I would definitely like to be able to see and identify in advance the data points we're going to be using to determine our success. For example, under student success, ensure an ongoing district-wide student-centered focus. That's pretty hard to determine exactly what we're going to use for that versus under people, maintain high retention rate of employees. That was easy.
Right.
You know, so I would like us to be more specific, knowing again that those measurements could change, you know, if curriculum changes or whatever, maybe that's going to change. But I would really like for us to have measurements because it became almost an issue between the board and the administration where we thought a measurement should be X and the administration thought a measurement should be Y. And we were like, well, you know, we didn't talk about that during this process. And so we weren't always in agreement with what success looked like from a data standpoint. Yeah, I think that's all I have on the input side.
That's great. Thank you.
Right. Okay. I came on the board. This is the very first thing that we did right when I got elected to the board was do the strategic plan. So I was like fish out of water, figuring out how to be a board member. And they're like, let's figure out the strategic plan. And I really liked the process that we went through with it, though. It was very collaborative the entire time. We had multiple study sessions where we were moving around a room and using sticky notes to pick different things. And so, I mean, I really do feel like this is the best thing I've ever seen in our district of the collaboration between the board and administration and the community, between the various community events that we held where they were able to come and give feedback through surveys that were done. So I definitely want to see that process, however that looks. It might look a little different, but going forward. And I agree that it got a little rigid, but it did give us something always to tie. Like we could always go back and tie it to something. And one of the things I also liked is that we would pick a few things each year. It wasn't expected that we're going to hit all these goals in one year. It is meant to, we want to hit all of these goals over 5 years. So in year 1, we're going to focus on 1, 3, 5, 7. And year 2, we're going to do 2, 6, 8, 10. And so I did like that too. And that it gave us that global picture. We're not doing everything at one time. Each year we'll kind of decide here's where we're going to put our focus. And that helped keep us kind of in check of what we're doing. And it helps the administration know what to do. And it helps our community know where our priorities are going to be for.
Great. Thank you.
I think Mr. Owens, he wasn't on the board when we did the plan. So like he probably.
Well, Ryan, do you have any comments from just being a community member at the time? And I mean, it's easy for us to say, yeah, it was super collaborative. It was awesome. And we used sticky notes and pat ourselves on the back. But like, did it feel that way to you? I mean, did it feel that way to someone who was in the community or no? I mean, just to sort of give us a fair picture of that.
Yeah, I mean, not having a child in school yet, I wasn't aware of, that this even existed. I do think similar to what one of the things that I've noticed as I've come on board is that like board member Moran mentioned is the lack of tangible, like quantifiable, right? Like, hey, we did this or we're achieving this, as opposed to just kind of like a feel good, hey, let's do this. Okay, cool. Well, we should always do that. But how do we know we're doing it? Or how can we measure that success or that growth over time through a strategic plan, as opposed to just like a feel good, kind of like a poster on the wall, right? Be happy. Okay, cool. So.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Any questions from you? Want me to kind of jump in? So just want to validate everything you said. I think the process, the engagement, unfortunately in large systems, and we even talked about it today, we can be in a position where we're inheriting that something that we didn't have a hand in developing and creating. And some people are in a position to actually implement it and be accountable to it. And they also didn't have any level of ownership, right? So making sure that when we create something, there's opportunities for people to be able to see it and actually look at it from some sense of ownership rather than consumership, right? How do we own this? This is something that we built. I know what my part it is, and I know how we contribute to it. And then to your point, if we right, the destination is not this product, right? We need to be able to identify that, and we don't evaluate our effectiveness and our impact based on our intentions. You have great intentions, right? It has to be based on evidence, right? And do you think that this is a fair statement? You have more money, people, and time on your hands than you ever thought you had. I'm just kidding, right? So do you think that you operate at a deficit when it comes to time, people, and money? We don't have enough time, we don't have enough people, and we don't have enough money. Do you think that's true? Right? So you have to make very wise decisions about how we're going to invest the resources that we have. Part of your role in governance is resource management. You will make decisions about what we will invest in, right? So understanding that part of the message and what a constant is in the midst of all the variables that you discussed is that we will identify and invest in evidence of need. And then we will have a process to identify and affirm evidence of implementation and measure and monitor evidence of effectiveness of our implementation and then evidence of impact, right? Because it's about the outcomes. So to make sure that we have clear targets, to your point, right? It can't be, okay, we have a Be Happy initiative. Okay, so what are you measuring? The number of posters, the number of events, the number of activities, or are we going to have measurable impact that's specifically and explicitly identified to the most essential skills and behaviors and mindset that's necessary for a child to be successful when they leave your system? So it's building on some of the things that you've done, but also how do we make sure that this is something, you know, even in asking the team today, is this a visual that's at every single time the admin council is coming together when we're making decisions, when we're establishing priorities, and so becoming more intentional with it, right? The language you want to use is loose tight, right? What are the things that we're going to be tight on? What are the things that are no longer up for a vote? These are cornerstones. This is what we will be building everything on. We'll identify the things that will never change before we start talking about all the things that might, that we didn't even ask for, to your point, right? So that prepares us for this work called schools. Okay, so thank you for your feedback around that, and we'll certainly make sure that we're building into a process that's very inclusive. You even have some good language that's from even further than that, and language around we believe and having common language that everybody rallies around, right? So we can just invite you to participate really quickly. This was, and I'll just share with you a little bit because, you know, it's not a school meeting unless there's chart paper and stickies. You know that, right? So I just want you to know. And then we did a gallery walk. We didn't use any dots. So there was conversations about this, and we'd like you to maybe participate a little bit. We just think about this through the idea of where, if you look at the instrument and what was the process, where you were, and what were some key highlights? I think you've identified some of those about a collaborative process. People were engaged. They have their hand in it. We're communicating together. It was a powerful collaborative process, multiple meetings, and we built and created something together. Where you are right now, what are those keys? But then the prompt that will be important moving forward, or what are some keys that you think to the next step in the process, right? So if you would maybe, and you can have conversationally, we want you to write this down, but the visual is that the conversation, and if anybody wants to contribute to this, please do, was to kind of look at the plan and talk about the plan and the process and what were, if there were highlights and what were those keys, right? Your mantra this year to the We Believe is it starts with honoring our past, right? Honoring the past, right? And so what are we honoring the past? We should acknowledge the past, honor the past. Is that something that's still a part of our present? And is that something that we want to build into the work that we're doing moving forward? So if you would, we can just do this verbally, but if you would jot some of those down, I'd like to contribute that so we can capture that. But some of those keys to the past, this is what I've already heard: the collaborative process, the level of engagement, the belief statements came up significantly multiple times with some of the staff members today. But any of the keys to the past and keys to the current present that you would like to see be a part of the keys moving forward in the future?
I'm sorry, I don't think I understand what you want me to do.
Okay.
Can you say that a different way, please?
Sure. Uh, in looking at kind of the process of what you developed is an instrument that you've been used, you spoke to how you used it, right? Is there anything specific about the plan and how it was used, how it was developed, or that were key parts of it? You might say, I think a key to the past were those value statements. I see those as constant. I see those as something that shouldn't change. They should continue, whether it's format, process, language, keys really means this is something that's essential, right? We would like to, this was essential to the development, the process of development, or how we used it. Currently, right now, how do you see Litchfield Elementary School District actively engaging and the evidence of that plan is in practice, right? Those are keys that you see being done and used now. And then just ideas and concepts about what keys would you carry on from past, present to the future, or it's something that doesn't exist that you feel is a need that needs to be explored.
I believe you mentioned the collaborative process, but I will second that, or at least add that again to the list. I think that looking at the past and thinking that that's something that was effective, and I think allowed engagement at multiple levels. So I do think that designing a collaborative process that is truly collaborative, meaning we are hearing and incorporating voices. We're not just hearing, we are hearing and incorporating voices. We have a lot of really smart people that work here and that send their kids to school here and that are a part of the community. So let's tap into that and continue the collaboration that we've had up to date.
Anyone else want to add something? I know you're jotting different things down, but
some notes.
things that
Right
okay.
now.
I have some notes. I still don't know if I'm doing this homework assignment right,
Yeah.
but I'm going to say that I think the present with where we are, I do like that this is a common tool for reference, that we at least all have some common language that we can use. And I know that our common language as a district has changed as our leadership has changed. So I would anticipate that that would change on the new document as well. And I think for the future, just echoing what you would expect me to say, which is data-driven decisions and goals that are measurable, and then continuous improvement, a tool that is not rigid and fixed.
That's great. Thank you. Anyone else add to that?
Melissa?
I think it's Ryan's turn to talk.
I had no idea what we were doing tonight.
I don't think any of us really fully understood. I think that's why we're a little sleepy, but
this, I guess this is kind of past and I don't know, future, staying true to the community core values that it is the district of Litchfield Elementary School District. Redundancy problem.
that's my number one thing from the past is the collaboration. And that's what I'd like to hold firm to as we move through this process. Currently, we're kind of in a shift right now, right? We've changed administration. So I feel like while our strategic plan is here and in place, to be honest, I don't feel as central to us. That hasn't stopped us from conducting business and doing what we need to do. But I think that I have a hard time saying currently present I want to keep in place, because I feel like we're kind of shifting away from that as we move into coming up with a new plan. And that happens when you have a huge change. I mean, all the people sitting here in administration, only one of them has been with us more than a couple of years. So you're just going to have that change. But so I don't think, like I said, it hasn't held us back from doing what we need to do. But going forward, I would definitely want us to see more definitive things to judge how if we're meeting our goals or not. So.
Great, thank you. And not the greatest of instructions that I've ever given to a collective group, right? You didn't know what we were working on, right? This is the prompt. We did all of this in 4 hours today, right? So to enlist you a little bit is to just prompt some of the conversations, but there are key components that are coming from your conversation that can be leveraged moving forward. And I think it resonates with the group that we visited with today, right? I think the clarity in the common language and what becomes core, regardless of what's thrown at us, are the core values, right? And it doesn't mean they change, but with so many new and some, whether it's new families, new kids, new administrators, sometimes it's just renewing our vows to our values, right? So it's having the conversation, and not just in terms of what are the terms that are in the instrument, but to have, somebody alluded to, common language, right? So there's clarity around what this means, what should it look like, sound like, and feel like when we see this, when we're on campus, when we're making decisions, and how we model that. So coming back to that, and then certainly making sure that it's evidence-based, it's flexible and fluid. And what you're saying too is not, and I think this is one of the flaws of many strategic plans, is that they become checklists and they're long lists of things to do, and we're not measuring, monitoring whether it's making a difference. And or it's this destination point where we'll talk about that in 3 or 5 years, rather than saying we need to make short-term measurable objectives where we're looking at not just evidence of impact, but evidence of implementation. Where were we 50 days ago, right? 50-day challenges and short-term measure of impact on what's working and what's not, right? Establishing the constants, which might be where we want to be, what we want to be more efficient at, outcomes that we want for kids, and we regularly taking temperature checks, right? How many of you are parents? You ever have a child that has a fever and they're pulling on their ear a little bit, right? And you go to the doctor's office and they say it's a virus. It just needs to run its course. And you say, oh no, I'm not leaving without that pink magic medicine. It's going in the fridge, right? But if in 2 weeks they still have a fever and you take them back, you don't want more of the same. Right. So we need to be right. So if to use that type of imagery is that we have built-in milestones, measurable temperature checks on where we were to where we are, and we're identifying what's working and what's not. Right. So the constants need to be about the difference that it is that we're wanting to make, just not things that we want to do. So being focused on evidence, clearly building it around some core values, and then looking at the evidence to drive your priorities, I think is something that you want to build, and recognizing that each building might be a little bit different, right? The context of the campus and their priorities within that might look a little bit different, so that we're producing that we want to be flexible and a fluid, systematic leader, and promote that same type of leadership at the individual sites and departments.
Do you mind real quick? One thing I think, and I don't know why this came to me, maybe just what you said or something triggered it, but just like, we don't want teachers teaching to a test. I don't think we want a strategic plan where we're so focused on just how do we achieve, like, checking boxes, or how do we achieve that? And we're so focused on the strategic plan that we're lose sight of all the other things that we need to do as a district and, at every level. So I think that should be a priority, obviously, if it's not already somewhere in there, is that, we're not creating a strategic plan, and then the goal is only focused on achieving the strategic plan, just like we don't want to teach to tests.
Right. And too many systems do that, and I can share with you some examples that it really does produce checklists, and people are in a hurry to make sure they submit them to the board, and you guys don't even have enough time to read them, and they're 83 pages long, and we go through this accountability process that annually we go through an exercise that takes a lot of time, energy, and emotion, and it's not having an impact on teaching and learning. Right. So
One other thing, if I can just mention
Please.
before you go on, is this is not the right wording, but hopefully you'll understand and be able to wordsmith this better. But one thing I think that for the future is clear expectations for everybody that is involved. So whether I'm a parent or a teacher, staff member, administrator, when I look at this document or whatever it's going to be, where do I fit? What is my role? What am I supposed to be doing? Right? Because I think sometimes when people say, oh, a strategic plan, well, that's just like the board and Carter, that's their job. They got to figure that out. No, I mean, we could pack this room with people and we still wouldn't have enough people to do this, right? We're in charge of 10,000 students. So we need 10,000 families and every single staff member we have to achieve these goals. So I just want it to be really clear that I think, going back to the collaboration, that we're not just asking your opinion because we want to check that box. We're asking your opinion because we want you to be engaged and working with us. So when you look at this document, you know where you fit. What is my role in this value? How do I help achieve that? And then at the end of the day, to your comment earlier about accountability, I do not, just putting this out there right now, folks, I do not want an 83-page PowerPoint. Don't even do it. It's not happening. I'm not reading that. But that's not true. I would absolutely read that, but I would hate you guys the entire time.
Can you read back the minutes? I want to see what it said. Either
Yeah.
you will or will not.
Yeah. I will read it, but I will be very grumpy. But what in this document, right? What are we holding ourselves accountable to at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Because if we do this for another 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, at some point in time, we're going to have to, sort of look at these measurements of success and say, what are we doing here? So anyway, I don't know if it's clear expectations is the right word, but I want everyone to see themselves in this document so they know what their role is here in achieving these goals.
Mr. LaRose, if I can add, please, and Ms. Clymer, thank you. Bridge and I we each wrote down a word based on our morning conversation. And I just want you to know, by the time we end tonight, I think your comments will fit exactly with where we're headed. And I started that in my role from day one, saying there's no way I can do this all by myself, that the community, we're all in this together, that it does take the entire village, everybody invested in kids' success to get a strategic plan to where we want it to be. So I just wanted to say thank you, but just know we're right with you. So thank you.
I would like to add that I think 82 pages, Danielle? 82 page PowerPoints come about when there is a lack of trust, either between the board and district leadership. And so we're asking you to prove that you're doing your job, or between district leadership and a principal, or between a principal and a teacher, or between a family and a teacher. All of those relationships come together. So that's where the intangible culture piece, that we need to have integrity and speak with truth and transparency and have accountability across the board, comes into play with this strategic plan and us being able to execute that. Because if that trust is broken, that's when we start saying, I don't believe what you're telling me, and I need you to prove it to me. And I am done doing that. I don't want to have to do that. So I just feel like that has to be somehow integrated into this as well from the culture standpoint.
Yeah. And that can be a loaded word, accountable, right? So accountable to what? To the checklist that we're talking about? And if we do get into a conversation that's the technical accountability, we've gotten off course. We're really addressing maybe some organizational dysfunction, some performance issues. It's not about the right conversation. We want to create something that's so compelling that we're mutually accountable to doing the things that we said we were going to do, because we believe that is what will have the most positive impact on teaching and learning, period. Right. So if you say this is why we exist, and this is the compelling outcomes and the values that we have, then we have to also identify then how do we need to behave to accomplish the things that we said we're going to accomplish. So what we're holding each other accountable is to not, did you turn it in on time? It's, are you honoring and behaving in a way that we said we had to, if we had any chance of accomplishing the things that we wanted to accomplish on behalf of kids, right? So the why and the compelling moral imperative, whatever it is that you want to talk about, there has to be something that's always bigger than all of the noise and the nonsense and the disruptions and distractions that can come to our work, right? And that is, what are we doing for all kids, period, right? And making sure that that's what we're holding each other accountable to. Right. So you've heard the quotes. There's lots of good stuff in here, but I think part of what you're helping with, and I want to thank you for that, is that this isn't let's just jump in and keep doing what we've been doing. Right. This journey isn't beginning with the first step. It's coming together to make sure we're facing the right direction. What's the direction that we're facing with in terms of where we want to go, what we want to build upon, and how we want to make it even better than before. Right. Moral imperative. Would any of you that attended the meeting today kind of just speak to this story and why it was used relative to the hospital administrator?
When you read this article, it talks about how you're engaging all of your employees. There's a lot of noise that you face day to day. This particular surgeon became the leader in transforming hospitals and running hospitals and getting them to their end result. And so he did that by engaging all of the employees. It talks specifically about kind of sidebarring when he's in the middle of a conversation and going directly to a janitor and asking, how are you making an impact here? And it was all along the lines of keeping a sanitary, safe, and effective, hospital in operation. I think there was a little bit more to that. I might be missing one piece, but essentially he had that employee buy into their purpose and why they're there and how their purpose drives the success of that organization. So amidst all the noise that happens in our day-to-day lives, everybody knowing their independent piece of the puzzle and how it contributes to the mission. So.
Mr. Cooley gave you a great summary. I think the other piece that I would add that ties it all together is that doctor had the vision for the hospital that he was at the time was they were saving lives. And so when the custodian was able to speak to, hey, what are you doing? The custodian didn't answer, well, I'm going to go clean the floor. I'm going to clean this windowsill. I'm going to take care of the doorknob. It was, no, what I do is I save lives. And so it really, this article just demonstrated how a powerful and compelling reason to the why, how that it can infiltrate the entire organization, not just piece by piece by piece, and what you perceive as the why. And I know that's the vision for a quality strategic plan.
Right. So the idea is a reporter was following them around and said, why is this administrator that we're doing a story on talking to this custodian? So a reporter said, what did you guys talk about? And he said, I talk about what we do here. And he said, well, what do you do here? And he said, I save lives, right? So the idea is everybody, if we're going to be accountable, it's to that type of statement. And sometimes we need to be more intentional. If it's transportation, HR, business services, food and nutrition services, you work in the office. No, everybody has a common unifying fundamental purpose. And that's ensuring kids that learn, right? And sometimes we need to be more intentional about that, or we need to remind ourselves to that moral imperative, because if we don't remind ourselves of something that's compelling, then it's just a chore. It's a checklist. And we're working with kids, and we can't have people that come to the work with a heart that's about, I have a chore and a checklist, and I'm really not somebody that has an impact on students, because if that's your mindset, then you won't. Right. So it's just really having conversations. And what the conversation here was with the team was just to have them talk about their team. Right. And if that's the phrase, what is it that you guys do here? Then does your team have an answer to that? Does everybody answer it the same way? Or do they say things that inspire all of us, like lifelong learning in an ever-changing global society with technology, diversity, unity, and Pokemon, right? Whatever, right? So, I mean, we have all of this lingo that really isn't something that's compelling, right? But if we say there's a fundamental core purpose, that at the end of the day, the influence that we want to have is to be positive on the life of a child, then how often is that at the root of the decisions that we make, what we say, what we don't say, what we evaluate, and if we're going to hold each other accountable, it's to the behaviors that support that, right? So talking about that, so the framework that we're going to use is just, this is just the pillar concept. You've seen that, but it's really recognizing that mission, vision, values, and goals has to be a component of the strategic plan, but we want to kind of shift our mindset around these things from and I'm sorry to make fun of mission statements, but like I always say, is that 32 years you establish what you call as maybe ed leadership wisdom, right? And wisdom means was dumb. You see how I did that on the play words? Right. I did some things that just were, everyone was doing it. We thought we had to do it, and it didn't have the impact that we wanted it to have, right? So mission isn't a mission statement. It's, are we crystal clear on the fundamental reason we exist? What is it that we do here? Vision is, who do we aspire to be? Because that's why we exist, right? Because the vision is the destination. Otherwise, you have a strategic plan of stuff that you're going to do, but where is it that you want it to take you? When we say accountability, values they're just not keywords in our visual. Values mean, if we're clear on why we exist and the place that we want to be, then how must we behave in order to accomplish that? So we define explicitly where we want to be and how we need to behave in order to get there, that's what we hold each other accountable to. And that the goals should be incremental steps, measurable milestones to monitor our progress, celebrate our testimonials, not wait until the high stakes summit of assessment comes out and what letter are we putting on the banner this year, right? What we're celebrating is the stories, the testimonials, the change, the difference, the saving lives stuff that happens day in, day out that doesn't always make it on the website or in the paper. So mindset is something that's really important. I'm just going to see if anybody wants to read this. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to make you do this. This is the district that I work with. I hope you can't read the district that it says. This is their strategic plan. You see the upper left corner? See what page that was? Get ready. This is not the district's strategic plan. It's one of their schools. These all get submitted to board members. So we'd like to say you're welcome. I'm just kidding, right? So, but the intent is becomes a behemoth. I work with the principals once a month and they are spending their time that they don't have enough of enlisting their people, having meetings around completing an instrument that they won't talk about again for another 11 and a half months. We don't have time for that, right? So wisdom is wisdom, right? So true knowledge is knowing that you know nothing, right? So some of the things that I've learned, right, is about this when we get focused on what it is ultimately, what's the difference that we want to make? Why do we exist? And what's the impact that we want to have? Then we need to be unwavering. There's going to be lots of great things and lots of good ideas. And I like chasing those things too. But if we have a clear and compelling definition of the outcomes that we want on behalf of kids, then that's our yes, right? To Dr. Doozy's point. And it makes it easier to say no, right? I just think this is a funny visual, but I've been in part of organizations where our list of things that we're doing, and we have a long list and everybody can say what that list is, but it's impossible for us to go anywhere. I think this is an important point too, is that I don't know if you've heard this, but schools are archaic. They're very traditional. They're resistant to change. Public education doesn't change. You know what we're doing all the time is changing. In fact, we're changing so much and implementing so many different things. The product is chronic mediocrity. That's a powerful phrase. We do things marginally well, but we never get great at it because there's a new mandate. It's an unfunded mandate. We tried this. We have new people, right? What you're trying to establish is, regardless of the people sitting in the chairs, our fundamental purpose in the place where we want to be shouldn't change. We want to get really, really, really good at those things that are most key and vital to having the impact that we want to have. And make sure that we protect and preserve those things when we meet as an admin council, when we meet with our guiding coalition, when every fourth meeting, it's going to be about where are we on our journey? What are the testimonials? What's the celebrations? Where do we need to make shifts? It's just research that supports the notion that it's not going to be us finding the silver bullet and adopting a new program that's going to make the difference. It's not that. It's identifying a few things that you're going to be relentless about. Have you ever heard this phrase? Well, I just think it's our job to make sure that we give everybody more tools in their toolbox. Have you ever heard that phrase? Well, here's what I learned. They haven't used the last seven tools that we gave them, right? Okay, the idea is so right. And or people just use the tool that they like. Isn't this true that the tool that you use should be dependent upon what it is that you're trying to build? If we don't define what it is that we're going to build, then what tools is it that's most important? Really, and the tools are the people that you have and giving them time like you've done to do the work. Okay, so the key shift, this is kind of what you guys have alluded to, right? Is that my own experience in these massive strategic plans, these incredibly complex and powerful and incredible effort that is put into producing these things with caring, dedicated, loving people with great intentions, right? But they're unrealistic. We can't do things in schools that are meaningful but not manageable because that just stresses people out. So we need to approach the work in knowing that it's practical, right? And then it needs to be specific. If it's not specific enough, it's general, we can't measure it, it's not identified in data and a target that we want to accomplish, then what are the conversations that we have? A lot of PowerPoints, to your point, right? Well, we're doing lots of stuff. Did any of it hit the mark? No. So it needs to be practical and it needs to be specific. And when we use that word accountability, that's we need to be credible, and credible just means we're doing the things that we said we were going to do. When we say no, it's not because we don't think it's a neat idea and we wouldn't like to do it. It's that we said that we were going to do this and we identified this as a priority. So credibility is a byproduct of practicality and specificity. And if it's not compelling, right? If we don't have a compelling why behind the what, it's going to be hard to get people to rally around it, right? People will not move unless they've been moved, right? And part of the leadership is to make sure that we create something and a process to the product that is compelling for people. So if we're clear on why we exist, then who is it that we want to become, right? Right. What's the vision? Where are we going from? No vision leads to division. I just think it's clever. But this is John Cotter's work, and he did a lot of business work, but it's about transforming organizations and what are the 8 critical steps. But his research focused on what are the fatal flaws. And what he said is all of these transformation efforts, those that fall, it's because people within the organization can tell you all the things that you're doing, but they can't tell you where it's supposed to go. It's checklists, right? So where is it that we want to go, right? What's the vision? What's the destination? Have you guys ever used this little thing right here? Right? Yeah. I did this morning coming out here. It wasn't so good. I came from Queen Creek, right? I lost my way. What's the first thing that this app asks you? Where are you going? Where are you going? What's the next question?
Oh, where are you?
Right? So that's what we're saying. Where are we going and where are we right now? Everything, the rest of the app is dependent upon those 2 questions. Where are we going? Where are you now? And it's going to give you options, different timelines, different routes. One of the things that you have spoken to is that when we really create what you're envisioning is number 7 is regular meetings, because we're recalculating based on ever-changing conditions. We didn't change where we want to go, but based on current conditions, we need to make modifications and adjustments. We're still going to get there. What time are we going to get there? How much time do we have to get there? That's what we're recalculating. We don't change where we want to go because we're running out of time. We're more discerning about how we use that. All right. So what I want to commend you for is what you've already created that had a great deal of engagement. In fact, I think you had multiple presentations on what was community engagement, what were the surveys, what did people say in helping develop and define the Litchfield learner. Take a pause. And if you could just maybe give me a little bit of the context on this, what your role was in this, what your understanding is about this, maybe Bridget, anything that you would add to that about this Litchfield learner and the language that's in this.
Somebody else want to start this part of like our part in the Litchfield learning?
Oh, I mean, I can just comment. I mean, from the process, there were parent surveys that went out and we had, I guess it was a study session about it. And what I thought was remarkable about it was that from all the stakeholder feedback that we got, there were very common themes that really rose to the top and made it not easy, but made it clear where our priorities should lie.
I mean, to be totally honest, we didn't have a direct role in creating this because, I mean, some of us have children in the district, but we weren't, that's not our job to be a parent here.
Mhm.
And we're also not educators. So those roles were different, right? I mean, just in terms of reviewing the information and understanding where the district wanted to go and the purpose behind that. I think more was our role in this and reviewing that, making sure that the process was credible, obviously, and that the end goal, right, readiness for every learner was number one, that was the goal. I mean, I think that was the initial conversation, but also were we all in agreement with the process that basically led us here, that was going to get us to that. And I think, I mean, we all believe that it will, or you wouldn't have that slide. So, I mean, I think that we do believe that, but to be honest, I mean, we had probably the least role in that, which I think is probably the best role, because what we really are supposed to do here is just make sure these guys are doing the right thing. That's really our job. We don't need to create these types of things because we have really smart people that do that. So I will say that I think that creating something like this helps, going back to what I said about helping families, helping teachers, helping students, helping administrators. Everybody knows their job in helping get here. That's pretty clear to most people, right? Doesn't matter if you have a child that's in kindergarten or a child that's in 5th grade or a child that is promoting from 8th grade and going to high school. There is very specific understanding of what they should be taking with them, right? To the next school, to the next grade, to the next challenge in their life. But also for us, what we should have given them, provided them, offered them, et cetera. So on both sides of that commitment, I think it's pretty clear what we need to be doing, what the student and the family needs to be doing, and then we're just going to see if it works, right? I'm just kidding.
We will have measurement to know that it works. So yes, I agree with everything that's shared here as far as how this image of our Litchfield learner was developed. The only comment that I'll make is that it was intentional collaboration that engaged all of our stakeholders or key holders and allowed them all to have a voice. And what we did discover is that voice and what they want to see their kids have as attributes and skills when they move to high school were very similar. We really had a lot of common language, maybe different words, but same meaning. So, the alignment to that process was something I think we really can celebrate, because I think it does create that compelling vision of what we want our kids to be ready for when we go to high school. And that's something that when I saw the end of the work and we engaged so many people in the work, that I was just really proud of, that everyone had ownership and can believe in this because we saw it in the data that we collected.
I would just add to that too, that something that was important to me from when we first talked about having the Litchfield learner and what that looks like as a mom of a special needs kid was that this was going to encompass everyone. And so one of the things that came out of that with all the feedback and everybody is that we made sure that everybody's included. Everybody can achieve this readiness for every Litchfield learner, no matter where they're starting at, where they're ending up, and no matter what their abilities are. So that's one of the things I'm proud of us, that we made sure to be inclusive of all of our students.
That's great. And what you have here too, and it may not follow the traditional approach in lots of educational systems, but when we talk about why you exist and the place that you want to be, there's connections to the language that you've identified here. This is not just the pillar of student achievement. These are targeted, explicit skills and behaviors that you want every child to possess that can be measured. Every child. Right. So the ultimate fundamental purpose of a K-8, it's not just measuring and monitoring how they perform when they're with you. It's, did you prepare them to be ready to be immediately successful in high school and beyond? And you've identified the characteristics and qualities holistically and not just single measurement that I think the characteristics and qualities that educators and moms and dads alike would want their kids to have. So I want to commend you on that. So where does this go? Right. So how do you connect that instrument? Because it was inclusive, it's defining the ultimate outcomes, right? You want kids exiting your system with those qualities and characteristics, right? So I think there's powerful language in that from the process, but also it's more specific, it's more compelling, and it's more explicit, and it's available and expected for every single child, right? So, and again, this is back to Cotter's work. What I like about his work too is he talks about the 8 steps. Step 1 is sense of urgency. That just means that we agree collectively, particularly at the leadership level, that there's things that we can and should do better, period. Status quo is not something I'm going to protect or defend. Step 2 is, do we have a leadership team to do it? Steps 3, 4, 5, 6, and even parts of 7 are all about vision. Have we talked about where we're going, and do we talk about it in a way that produces energy, passion, and action? Right? And sometimes the visuals just don't do that. Educational stuff can be pretty dry, right? So part of what we're talking about is how do we look at images that evoke some type of emotion, right? And understand that each of us in this community is, what's the visual? What is that? What is that a visual of? A key, right? So to your point, right? So is that not all of us hold and possess the exact same key, right? But when we work collaboratively, the ultimate visual and imagery is that we recognize that each of us is key to the success of every Litchfield learner. Each of us, right? And so now we're not inviting you to participate. It's almost an obligation that you are engaged and you are sharing and using your key to take us to the direction that we want to go, right? So the ultimate vision and destination is the characteristics and qualities of the Litchfield learner. And a lot of what you see are just ideas, and we're brainstorming different things and getting feedback from others. But the imagery about each of us is starts to key to what? Key to the characteristics and qualities of the Litchfield learner. The visual component, and I can't take any credit for this, I'll give it to my wife, but you'll see the visual of the key also speaks to your prior visual, right? I mean, it's honoring the past to speak to kind of who you were and where you were going to go, right? So just stay with me on this. The imagery of a key, what do keys do? What is that?
They open doors.
They open doors. What else?
Typically they solve a problem. They unlock something to what, whether it's a door or a box or a file cabinet or something, there's unlocking some kind of mystery
Unlock
that,
potential, remove barriers. Yeah.
Yeah.
What else?
that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. You can also use
Out
it
of my purse, in my pocket. I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
Gives access, right? You see the imagery, right? It's also starts and stops, right? I mean, it's what turns the engine on, right? And understanding that there's some imagery around that. The imagery that I find powerful too is that it's not the idea that we're seeking a silver bullet answer where everybody gets a master key, because it's just not going to happen. Right. But when you work together as a community, what we want to be able to create is everybody comes to the table with their key. And if we do that, then our key ring is pretty big and there's not a lock on the life of a child that we can't open. Right. So using that kind of imagery and then people identifying their keys as it relates to the descriptions within the Litchfield learner. Right. So if we understand that each of us is key to that success, then language like the Litchfield learner just says a Litchfield learner is a skilled, knowledgeable, and continuous learner, one who communicates effectively, collaborates selflessly, and seeks solutions cooperatively. So ultimately, if you leave here, you're ready. That means lots of different things. It's not placing a label on a child based on a single high-stakes summative assessment, right? So the idea, the shift around this is that creating an instrument for you for the future that's not about initiatives, right? It's about impact. I like to say it's not a list of what you're doing. It's being really clear and convicted and committed to what it is that you're pursuing. Lots of school systems have activities, and what you have said repeatedly is that you want evidence more than activities. This idea of chores and checklists to choices and challenges. What I envision is sometimes the culminating event is you adopt a strategic plan. No, it isn't. That's a ribbon cutting event. That's an event to be able to say, let's get started. And what's our 100-day challenge? The first 100 days, at the end of 100 days, what are our challenges? What are our we will statements after 100 days as it relates to the impact that you would want to have around something you just created, which is the characteristics and qualities of a Litchfield learner. So you have this kind of a visual, right? So often the lingo is, and you need one, right? And I think this some type of compelling picture, but if you do it in a way that evokes some emotion and some imagery, I think it's powerful, because some districts have this one. Some districts have this one, some districts have this one, some districts have this one, right? Okay, so the centerpiece on that, does everybody know what that's called? What is it? It's a keystone, right? You see the key theme right here? Good, right? So a keystone, I love this language, something on which associated things depend on for support. Keystone is the most important. That's why the word also means the most important part of everything. And especially this. The most important part of a plan idea on which everything else depends. But it said that from a leadership perspective is that we, amongst all the things that we are doing and could be doing, have we identified a few things that we all believe emphatically and enthusiastically, unapologetically, could have the most positive impact on teaching and learning. So what are those keystones for your work moving forward, right? So if you look at your image, look at your school colors. And then if you look at the keystone, and these are just ideas, we're just brainstorming the imagery, right? Because part of what you want to be able to do is with the work that you do, all the engagement that you do, even the measurable objectives that you have as it's tied to the Litchfield learners, do you create something that tells a story? Because the power is in the story. And then, and a keyhole. I'm just having fun with you, right? But the idea, right? If you looked at the keystones, what are the core keystones, right? As opposed to a pillar or a tenon, is that if you look at readiness, right? Readiness. That's the Litchfield learner. You've identified the characteristics and qualities as it relates to readiness. Resourceful is how are we investing that? How are we managing our resources, our time, our people, and our money? And how are we leveraging that? The relationships with one another, with the community, with our families, with our partners, intentionally and strategically building relationships that we know that the work that the relationships are going to be rooted in mutual accountability. And then the bottom line that you've all said is that whatever it is that we do, that it needs to be tied to results. We should have evidence that's driving the plan, evidence that we're using to measure and monitor the plan and make the adjustments in real time. I'm going to hit a pause button and just ask for any kind of thoughts and ideas or anything that this imagery kind of evoked for you, whether it's the key imagery or the keystone imagery, and even the pillars, right? Because the language can change. It can say educate, collaborate, communicate, and elevate. Whatever. I mean, there's imagery that you want to be able to help tell your story. I think the readiness is powerful because that's the description and the purpose that you've come up with behind the Litchfield learner.
Sorry, I'm just thinking.
Right. And again, all this is playing around with ideas, and what drove these ideas and conversations with the team is the work that you've done around the Litchfield learner.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like the idea of keys. To your point, they mean different things to different people, but they are all generally positive and evoking potential and, something new or, removing a barrier or something like that. So I agree with that thought process there. I don't disagree with this. I mean, it's hard. I've had 2 seconds to think through it, but I mean, I do agree, whether this terminology is what I would have used, it's exactly what we've said, right? It's just, to your point about the Litchfield learner, it might be different words, but it's the same meaning, right? So as far as that goes, I think that's, we are on track, and I like the idea of having, sort of the definition of these things being, the foundation of everything else, right? That makes it really easy to hold ourselves accountable or to, have people, what are you doing here? This is it, right? This is the 30-second elevator speech that everybody in the district knows and lives by, kind of thing. So I like that thought process, and it makes sense to me.
Agreeing with Danielle that, we've had now 5 minutes to look at this, but I like the keystone concept for the district administration or leadership to kind of be like, this is what we would go back to the keystones. This is like what we rely on. But I think what would be more compelling for parents in the community would be the use of a key to open the door, because we want to open the door to successful high school students. That's the whole purpose. And so I like the keystone because that holds us together. That's what we depend on. But I think for the students, we need to open the door for them.
I like that. That's good.
I don't love when everything starts with the same letter. I know that's an education thing and people love that, but it just always feels forced to me. Like, let's find a word that starts with R, and, not that it doesn't make sense in this scenario, but it can just be kind of cheesy sometimes, in my opinion.
True. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
We're elementary school district. It's kind of cheesy at times.
No, but trust me, the whole morning is about truth. I mean, we got to laugh at ourselves, and also, sometimes it can be fairly contrived. I just gave you like 9 examples of places and systems that do the same thing. I think what drove it is the language around readiness, right? Because that was so powerful. But I like the comment around the foundation that you alluded to, and also the open doors. I think there's a lot of imagery there that can resonate, especially for our families.
Is this something y'all did like today, right? Or is this you just did this? Like, is this
Yeah,
something you all worked on, right?
Go ahead and share.
I guess that's
your
where I'm
role
like,
was in this
yeah,
process. Yeah, this is.
That's my confusion, I think. Like,
Yeah,
you guys
absolutely.
worked on this, and this is because I don't need to wordsmith this, and like I'm letting you guys do this and then present it. I think our input, but I'm not gonna. Oh, I like the colors. Like, that's not my. Sorry. Right.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. And
Yeah,
it is,
great
it is
point.
factual.
Great
We,
point.
along with Mr. LaRose, have been working all throughout the fall, moving into the spring, knowing we were going to be having this conversation around just a lot of the things you're seeing today, and trying to find ways to consider the work that was done, the Litchfield learner work, and how it can continue to drive us forward. Certainly using Mr. LaRose as a guide, and his many years and experiences have helped us get to this today. A lot of this conversation was had this morning as well with our admin team, just to engage them, to have them think about our current plan. Perhaps as you did at the beginning, what from the past do we want to keep as part of our world? Where are we now, that things we like, where we want to go? So a lot of this work was done this morning as well, which is why you're seeing a presentation that was morphed on the feedback that we received today. So it's been a work in progress, but I think what you're hearing is, and I'm not arguing with you, I appreciate your perspective, but what you're hearing is we also are open to things to consider, that this is a shared, at some point, future strategic plan. So
Yeah, which I'd appreciate. So my, I guess, is I appreciate your work so far. I think it's great. I have no objections so far. Yeah.
Well,
Now I can't get that like alliteration out of my head, Kim. I wasn't thinking that. Now all I can think about is all the R's, and now we're gonna have to like brainstorm new words or something. I don't know. Get the thesaurus out. How do I do that?
ARG, yeah, ARG. Yeah. I do work with a school district. I'm sorry. My wife's in branding, right? And their mascot is the Raiders, and their RTI period is called ARG-TI, right? So yeah. But also the dangerous thing for you guys is I had like 3 or 4 hours between the meeting this morning and this meeting, so I got to play around with slides, right? So, but just the engagement piece is teams taking it back to have conversations with their team is not about pitching any of the visuals that you've seen. The conversations are around kind of the moral imperative and why do we exist and what is it that we do here. Prompted by the "We Save Lives." If there is a line that we can emotionally respond to that helps connect everybody to readiness for kids, that's what it is that we want to produce. And then the audit is to help. Some people don't have the understanding and the investment in the creation of the past strategic plan. So engaging people in what that plan is and what's the language in it and what does it even mean, and then talking to their colleagues that were a part of it and they can speak to it. So immersing people in that, and then to be able to have a conversation about if we were to create something that would be compelling, that would be relevant and meaningful to everybody, what would that look like? And then to prompt to kind of talk about what are the keys to a successful, ready Litchfield learner, right? What are the keys to problem solving? What are the key skills to communication? The keys to character, the key. And when you look at the outcomes for kids, then that also identifies what are the keys for us. So the prompts are around language, but what it's all rooted in, and I just want to validate, and I'll close with this, is that we want something that is actually meaningful, that is used, that is flexible and fluid, and it's revisited. It's tied to data with regular measurable milestones, and that it continues to be something that is helping guide and frame your conversations and the decisions that you make with the limited resources that you have. So I think your vision around that is helpful in guiding what the next steps would be. And then I'll just turn it over to you to talk a little bit about what some of those next steps might be, particularly as it relates to the school board, a community event, those types.
So I just want to add, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Davidson, but I wanted to add something that I had to wrap my brain around in this process, is that the reason why we wanted to show you an example to process through is to be able to understand, if we call it pillars, keystones, whatever we call it, tenets, what do we do with those keystone tenets or pillars? What questions do we ask? How do we implement it? And to not have like a concrete example to that last slide that you were just on, those questions that you posed, what are the keys for that keystone so that we can be successful? So whatever we call the tenet, keystone, or pillars, we have to know how we're going to use those to take action, because that is just the beginning. It's not the end.
Thank you. And David, again, thank you for helping us out tonight. Sure. And board, thank you for helping us as well and engaging with us. One of the things that we do need to get to, and if you were to just please take a look at that slide there on the screen, is around our next steps. You see here, this process update engagement was to be done early March. We're here. It is March already. Woo, the year has gone fast, but that means that in order for us to get to somewhat of a product in May, we do have to figure out the best ways to engage our stakeholders. Certainly the world of the survey can exist. As Mr. LaRose spoke to, we will have our schools working with a variety of teams to gather some input on this process and the things that are important to them. But just wanted to see if any of you, and again, you may say, Carter, I'm not prepared yet, but the ways that we talked about to engage would be certainly partnering more than likely on the front end of board meetings that are established to serve as kind of open houses. And we would lead that conversation around bringing people to the table and kind of just taking advantage of that time where we're all together. And you could see that almost as a study session. We'd have that posted officially. So any one of you or all four of you could partake. And maybe by that point too, we'll have our fifth member. We'll see. But we could also, depending upon your thoughts, have outside the work week scenarios, Saturdays as an example. We're not opposed to that. I've just been a fan over my years to try to incorporate our engagement opportunities in scenarios that already exist. But I just wanted to throw that to you for any thoughts, or maybe again, you experienced something in the past that you said was so valuable. We have to do that. I'm okay with that feedback as well.
I think the open house concept is good. And I think having a weekend availability is good also. I'm not a fan of we're doing all of this one day, and if it doesn't work with your calendar, you don't get to participate, because that is how I felt about our neighboring district. It was either this works for you or it doesn't. And I would like us to give the community and folks more, not less, opportunities for input.
I agree. I like the open house concept. We are very good at creating committees and advisory groups and, people that raise their hand and say they want to be involved. And I love that about our district. We can always find people that want to be involved and want to help us shape things. I think something like this, I'd like to see it be more open-ended, like an open house, instead of creating a strategic, plan advisory committee where we collect applications and we say, okay, these are the 12 people that are going to decide everything, right? I like the open house concept where if you can come on a Thursday night, great. If you can come on a Saturday morning or whatever, I agree that we need multiple options for folks. We've got, some parents that work, some parents got little kiddos, some parents that need, time on the weekends, whatever it might be. But say, give everybody the opportunity to, if nothing else, just hear it directly from us with an explanation. We all know that board meetings are not the best place to understand everything, because we have been given the information, right? A few days beforehand, we get to read through it. We get to think about it. So when we come, we're prepared with questions and we can move through things fairly quickly just to be efficient in the meeting. Something like this, I want to make sure that people have more than, 10 minutes to process that or whatever. I think the open house concept does that. whether they choose to engage and create the sticky notes and all that kind of stuff, I mean, that's up to them, but at least they get to hear it and process it. And, they have multiple chances to be a part of it. So I think you guys have nailed that pretty well.
I would also like to see us have it at different locations to make sure that we are accommodating our West Side families as much as we are our East Side families. And since we are talking about having multiple opportunities, that gives us multiple opportunities to have it at different places.
I would like to just in learning and honing our skills as communicators, just want to make sure that we as a district are sending out this information, but every school and every campus, right? It is included everywhere, because I would love to say that all of our parents read all of our district communication, but there may be one or two that slips by, Sam. I'm sorry. So, whether it is teacher newsletters or principal, weekly or monthly, everyone's got some kind of regular communication. So let's just make sure that there's no one can say they didn't see it at least once, and we're given that chance.
I just add that the greatest success that I had facilitating a similar process in a district in Washington when I was superintendent was the model that you just spoke to, because it's multiple. And also what really the charge for teams today was to take it back in the context of the conversations in the teams and the families and the relationships that they already have. So if they have their monthly family nights, there can be components, there can be stations, there can be ways that you're engaging people in conversations. If you're going to meet with your PTA group, the foundation group, the representative group, you're meeting with the Rotarians. I mean, everybody loves a meeting. Thank you. Right. So, but you already have a bunch, right? So the idea is, how are we more intentional about engaging them in the context of what we're already doing? Creating another committee, another meeting at another time for a singular event. That's what turns this type of work into a final product, because you had a culminating event, as opposed to this is something that we're doing ongoing and we want it embedded in the life of our schools. So I applaud you with your perspective on that.
I do have a question. Do you guys feel like it is a reasonable goal to hit this by May? That's what you're saying, right? Like May, you want to have this done? Or approve it in June? Sorry, go ahead.
President Zeitem, our desire was to gather the feedback
Mhm.
in May so that we can kind of process that and work through that. So I don't believe we would have the product that we would want to raise up yet
Okay.
at that time. I can kind of foresee that and just, reading there. And we talked about that this morning, moving through June and really kind of talking about it as we enter a new school year, more so than in May.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because we have tasked this administration that's all mostly brand new people with a lot, and I don't want that's very important to be one more thing that we have to race through to get done to meet some deadlines. So if we need to talk about what that deadline looks like and make sure that we put the absolute necessary time into this, even if it's a little longer, that's important to me that we do that.
I agree with that. I think the end, whatever product that might be, whether it's a amazing keystone graphic or a 99 slide PowerPoint that I will put together myself.
Mhm.
This is the good stuff. And yes, Dr. Davidson, you do have a checklist, right? At the end of the day, you do have to say, yes, I accomplished something. And this was one of those things that we have requested that you do this year. But I do agree. I am more inclined to finish this when the work is finished than say, if we don't have this done in June, well, we're just slapping up what we've got kind of thing, because we're fine until August, right? It's not like any of this is going to change, or the underpinnings of all of this work is going to be drastically different in, 30 days or 60 days. So I think, I hope that you've heard the most important things are collaboration with our community and making sure that everybody's voice is heard, and that at the end of the day, the people that sit around here that are truly lucky enough to get to make the decisions are doing it based on feedback from the people that we actually impact every day. So I do want to make sure that everybody has a chance. And if that means this goes a couple of extra weeks because, April is the most terrible month in public education because of every state mandated test known to man and teacher appreciation, and it's the end of school, and oh, let's throw in Easter and everything else during that same time period. This looks like it could be hard to do. So just keep that in mind.
Well, what I would add to that is, even though our strategic plan currently is expiring at the end of this year, it doesn't mean we'll be flailing. I mean, as a board tonight, we made the decision on the budget, and that's generally not going to change. We had some conversation about our policies, and that's going to be a long-term, potential process. So it's not anything that has to happen by the time school starts next year. And then we hired you, and you're under contract. So we don't have any of those big decisions that we have to make right now, that hopefully next time we have to make those decisions, we'll have the new strategic plan process to be able to help guide those. But yeah, so I'm fine with some extra time as well to make sure that we get it right.
Thank you, Ms. Moran. And I just would second that the work that we will continue to do as a team, along with our school leaders and our department heads and so forth, it will remain strategic, despite a plan that might say that it ends in the end of May, right? So thank you.
I had another question when you talked about how leaders today are going to go back and meet with their teams and to get their buy-in on this whole process. And we talked about how every person is important and every person holds key. So are we having that go back? Our custodians are having this conversation about how they're going to impact our students. Are we making sure it's top to bottom, everybody's part of this conversation?
Ms. Idema, that conversation began this morning. And I do know that as a team, we've talked about how we will begin to help establish that framework and what that will look like. Our intent is to have all voices captured. We haven't really defined out what are those exact methodologies yet for doing that, but that is some of the work in front of us.
Because I would say that's one of the biggest key takeaways that I really appreciated, was that every single person is important to a child's success in our district, that every person is vital, and therefore we want them all to buy into this from the beginning.
I feel like this key terminology is just going to get out of control. It's just going to be like the keys to the kingdom and like all the keys. It's just, I love
Now
it.
you're getting keyed up. So part of those pillars, right? Mission, vision, values, goals. And I just want to applaud you on let's create and build something right. Let's not rush to get something done. A lot of your work around mission, why do we exist? Vision, who do we aspire to be? With the Litchfield learner and readiness, you have a lot of good work around that, right? That can help define kind of the values and beliefs, because you have that embedded in your last strategic plan. So a lot of that good work can be established. Those goals might become more concrete, and different teams and different departments annually go through that process as it is. If we create that lens, now the lens is the Litchfield learner lens, so we can be more intentional about that. So I think doing it well and doing it something that you can communicate enthusiastically and help people understand why you're doing it and what difference you want to make, that will make it more impactful in the long run. So thanks for having me here tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing that. And I think this was a really productive conversation. Okay, does anybody have anything else before we move on to the final section of the agenda? Okay, well then we are going to move on to the next section, which is going to be reports. We will start with Dr. Davidson.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Idem. And again, appreciate all of you out there who have stayed with us and will maybe watch this later. I know you highlighted at the beginning, Ms. Idem, the loss of our student out there. And I just want to just give a big shout out to our entire staff group, all different employees, as well as our students. We right now, and you mentioned April coming along, but there's a lot of stuff going on in our staff and in our student body. And so I just I want to throw a big giant wish well out there, but also just a conversation around perseverance and grit, and just really wanting to reinforce that with our team as a whole, that it's time. This is a hard part of the year, and there's just a lot happening. So I just wanted to just give a big giant wish well out there. Some additional items to highlight: our Purple Star school legislation. If you've been tracking that, it did pass the Education Committee in the Senate. It's continuing to move forward, and we will be excited one day to take that banner and switch it to actual Purple Star school. not just someone that's interested in it. So I'm hoping our state is paying close attention that we no longer want to be one of 6 in the United States that doesn't have Purple Star school legislation. So we're excited about that. A lot of great things are happening with the math challenges. We haven't pushed out all that data yet. You'll see it in the upcoming Friday report, but we will have many, many students that are representing our district with the West Side Impact Challenge here in the near future. So we're excited to share that with you soon. Wanted to give just a thank you to a variety of leaders, not just site leaders, but some of our teaching staff, some of our behavior team who have worked alongside some of our cabinet members on what we call revamp camp. But part of that is to listen to the feedback that was given in our surveys, and our teams are looking at and redoing our discipline matrix. We know that our staff and our students have to have that really positive culture to get the results we want. And part of that is making certain that our students and families, everybody, our handbooks are appropriate for those that we serve, and that we have the right eyes and ears and voices at the table to really have discipline make sense for both middle schools and then our K-5 students. So that work is happening. Again, I always find a lot of things to talk about. I'll end with this. Thank you to you all for your dedication to literacy. Many of you have been going to our schools, a part of Reading Across America, and what a great way for our kids to see your connectedness to their future. So thank you for that, and I will stop now.
Thank you. We will move on to reports from our board members. I will let Mr. Owen start today.
Great, thanks. So the last 2 days, we've had 4 district functions, the board meeting today, an executive session. And as much as I enjoy them all, the highlight of being on the board, in my experience so far in the year, a little over a year, is being in the classroom and getting to see the students. And so yesterday I was in Palm Valley and I got to read to a sales class, and it was amazing. They all wrote notes to me and drew me pictures, and I got to take a picture with them. And I think every single little girl was doing the peace sign. So by the end, I was doing the peace sign, and it was awesome. And then I got the opportunity today to go to Palm Valley, or Maple Pageant, I'm sorry. I actually read for a 4th grade class whose teacher I've known since I was 15 years old, which is pretty cool. I was in each class for about 20 minutes. I think I read for about 5 and answered questions for the other 15. One thing that stood out to me in the 5th grade class was how much actually some of the students knew about the reboundaries and some of the other things that are going on with the school district. And so that was probably that was one of the things that I took away today, was how some of these students have conversations with their parents, or just maybe they hear it from other students, and how they are aware of what's going on in their district other than just what's going on in their classrooms. But those were the kind of the highlights for me since our last meeting. So I appreciate all your work on what we just heard about today, and thank you for being here.
Ms. Moran.
Yes, since our last meeting, I did get to go and read at Litchfield Elementary School. I was the last of the board members, and so I didn't get to say that at the last meeting. But I got to read to a kinder class and a couple of 3rd grade classes. And I read If You Give a Pig a Party and Frog and Toad, which is my absolute favorite. So that was super fun. It's always great to see the kids in the classroom and get to interact with them. And they always ask really good questions too. So yes, I'm with you there. Secondarily, I got to attend some meetings this month. The foundation meeting on March 1st, I had some meetings with Dr. Davidson, and then our special meeting on February 27th, as well as the executive session that we had yesterday. I am not able to be as engaged these 12 weeks of tax season as I normally would be, but I am looking forward to April and May and wrapping up another great school year. So I'd like to end my report with some words of gratitude for my fellow board members, Danielle, Melissa, and Ryan. Thank you for being collaborative, open-minded, and professional. It is truly my pleasure to work with each of you. And so to wrap up and tie in my love of numbers and my gratitude for the 3 of you, I'm going to end with lyrics from Bruno Mars' song, Count on Me. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3. I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. Thank you.
Ms. Clymer?
I would say going after Kim and her song lyrics. Okay. I will try and keep this short. Yes, I didn't think about that, but we have had a lot of meetings, a lot of meetings lately. This one was way more fun. So we'll invite you to our executive session next time.
Yeah, I'm really busy that day.
Yeah. It's all kinds of fun things going on over here at the district. So thank you to those that have to coordinate them and make sure that all of us show up and do what we're supposed to do on time. We do appreciate that. I do agree that being on campus and in a classroom and doing things that, are what I call bucket fillers are the absolute best part of this job. It could be last week, last month. I don't remember. Well, no, because it was my birthday. So it was last week. We all attended the Verado Heritage Showcase. And I always like to shout out the Principal Noche, her staff, the students that led us around. Everyone on that campus was amazing. We are, an entourage with cabinet members and board members and everyone coming in, and they just acted like it was a normal day at school. They were focused and they were calm and they did what they were supposed to do. They answered questions and they were intelligent and kind and showed off all of the skills that we hope to see in Litchfield learners. So they're doing a great job, and just being on campus and seeing the impact of the decisions that we make here, sometimes easy and sometimes not so easy, is the reason that I do this job. So thank you again to Principal Noche and her staff for inviting us and taking such good care of us. I wanted to say, I'm trying to show my gratitude at every meeting because as to Melissa's point, there are so many things going on. It's hard to keep track of them all. And we even surpassed my own expectations. So this shout out goes to CFO Vaughn for his work on the budget. As Kim referenced earlier in the meeting, our relationship with the board, with the administration has not always been as it is today. And I know most of you are new, so you don't know all of those details, but I will say in years past, what happened tonight with the budget would not have happened. And that was due primarily to your preparation and strategic planning and transparent communication with us as a board for the last 3 or 4 months, probably. You've been working for 12 months, but we have been involved in that process for the last 3 or 4 months. And I never felt surprised. I never felt like, well, what the heck is he doing? Where are you going? Where is this money going? I never felt like I needed the 99-point, PowerPoint slide to understand all of that. We've gone through pretty substantial staffing changes and really just our policy around staffing in general. Salary changes and updates and some HR issues that can be thorny. We've gone through benefit changes and a lot of different things in order to get to a budget that we can all agree on. And I will just say to those that are listening or watching, because there's no one left here in the meeting except for us, but for all 4 board members to not have one question, one comment, one side glance of like, oh my gosh, do I have to say yes to this? Tonight on the budget should be a giant pat on the back for you. So if you did not feel that, please do, because it has not always been that way. And I leave these meetings and your, thorough explanation feeling like we've got this 100%. I'm not worried about getting a call from Carter that something has, gone terribly wrong and we don't have an answer for it, right? If I get a call that something has unexpected happened, it is followed by, and here's the solution we've already come up with. And I think that's not only in the finances and in all of your departments, but I'm just highlighting finance tonight because we surprised even me with not even one comment. And Kim, our resident CPA, did not even have a comment. So if that is not the most giant pat on the back, please take it as one. So thank you for all of your hard work. It does not go unnoticed. Also, I just wanted to wish everybody out there a very safe and happy spring break. For administrators, if you guys are getting a few days off, please enjoy them. And to our staff and students, please enjoy this time because you are going to come back and have a lot of expectations on you in the month of April. So good luck with your week off.
I'm going to go ahead of everyone in the future and give mine first. There has not been a lot of things because our meetings were kind of close together from the last time we did reports to now. I was able to attend the ASU field trip with a group of 6th graders at Wigwam Creek, which was very fun. For that group of students, they hadn't been on a field trip since like 1st grade. So it was a very fun experience. It makes me finally feel like, oh my gosh, we're getting away from all the COVID stuff and kids can finally do things. And obviously transportation has been part of the field trip stuff more recently, but still, it's just nice to be able to see those kids get to go do something and have such a great time. And they were so respectful of everybody there. It was a really fun experience for all the kids. And so I was really excited to get to do that. We also attended the school showcase at Verado Heritage, which that campus is an amazing campus. And we were lucky enough to get to go up after they had already done their A+ visit. So they had spectacular binders ready for us and all this stuff. But I think my favorite part was getting to have our little sit down with the classified staff. They came in and they were very honest with us. They gave some good feedback and they were very open with answering questions that we had. So I really enjoy when we get to hear from various groups on the campus. So I appreciate that she put that together for us. We also had our special meeting about the budget. I enjoyed the meeting also because we got to talk about the trust policy and what that might be an option for us going forward. So I look forward to us hearing more about that in the future and considering that move as a district. For Read Across America Week, I was able to read in a different sales class than Mr. Owens at Palm Valley last week on Friday. They were so cute. It was their lunchtime. So she was like, I feel like they're all sitting. So it's the best time. And they were all super great. They listened to stories. They would come up and want to look at the pictures. And it was just a really fun experience. I appreciate the teacher. She was, really nice about having me in her classroom and just saying, this is what our day looks like. And wanted us, as she was excited to have a board member come in and see, especially since at our last meeting, we had somebody talking about the sales program out there. And so she was able to have us see what that looked like, which I appreciated. Then I got to read to some classes today also at Mabel. And one of the questions I got to ask in every classroom was, what's my favorite part of my job as a board member? And I agree. It's that time in the classroom. And I told every one of them, this right here, this is the best part. We get to make some hard decisions and we have to do some stuff that's not as fun, but we're here to do it and we will do it. However, the best part of the job for me is when we get to go into those classrooms and interact with those students. Although I'm pretty sure that entire class is going to now, the 4th grade class I was in, are going to all go look up our YouTube channel for the district because the teacher made sure to share that I was YouTube famous, and a student in there let them know it's because I'm on the Litchfield district YouTube page. So now they're all going to look that up and watch our videos. So that'll be fun.
So shout out to all those pageant Panthers out there that are watching us on YouTube tonight.
That's
is what I'm
right.
hearing.
So yeah. So all those students that are watching tonight, this is what we do, right? It's much more fun to come and read to you guys. This was a good meeting and fun, and we appreciate that you came and talked to us. But yeah, so it's been a lot of meetings, right? And that's pretty much it. I've had lots of meetings with Dr. Davidson as well, because there's always stuff going on and planning for all the meetings that we have. We have to meet a lot. So thank you to everybody that gives their time and answers our questions, because I appreciate so much that anytime I have a question, I can reach out to anybody and they are very quick to get back to me with an answer or let me know they don't know it, but that they will find out. And I appreciate that we can trust that we can get the answers we need when people come to us, because people have been coming to us about random things, right? And so we want to make sure we give them the most accurate information. So that is pretty much it for my report today. Thank you to everybody that turned in your reports for us. I like the format of having everything on one page. It makes it really easy for me to just click through and look at all the reports from everybody. But with that, we are finished with our meeting. So I will entertain a motion.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
I will second.
Having a motion from Mr. Owens and a second from Ms. Clymer, I will call for the vote. Ms. Clymer?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
Mr.